Live in Studio B, it is 2022 BYU Football Media Day. I am Spencer Linton alongside Jerem Jordan. Our second guest of this 2-hour special is the athletic director, Tom Holmoe, back in Studio B. Hey. That's a Jim McMahon reference, right? Hey, he called you Tommy Holmoe. Yeah. We believe he's the only person that's been granted access to do that. Is there anybody else on that list?
There's a little bit of a story behind this. I grew up in La Crescenta, California. It's about 20 minutes from the Rose Bowl. And everybody that was my name, Tommy. And when I came to BYU, I figured, I'm going to be Tom at BYU. And there was a stadium announcer at the time at LaVell Stadium, better back then known as Cougar Stadium, named Ken Karchner or something like that. And the first tackle I ever made, he said, tackle by Tommy Holmoe. Ken Karchner called me Tommy Holmoe my whole career, but was the only one in Utah, except for Jim McMahon.
Okay. I asked Jim, he obviously, concussions over time, you forget stuff. He remembered a ton of details of a lot of things, but I said, do you remember Tom Holmoe? Did he pick you off in practice? And he goes, I don't remember. It's been about 40-plus years. Did you pick off Jim?
Both of us, our memories are a little bit slow these days, but my recollection serves me well. I think I got one or two.
One or two. So like 8 or 9. Okay.
Tom Holmoe with us on Media Day. Let's start with the upcoming season. And you just went through the schedule and state of the program with Dave McCann. And we've been clamoring about this roster, which is loaded with talent and NFL draft projections. What has you most excited about the 2022 season and the roster as you push forward in the final year of independence?
Well, I think it's just the state of where we are now. A lot has been said about personnel is what wins games. You have to have a great quarterback. You have to have a strong offensive and defensive line. And then if you have kind of stars a little bit here and here, maybe a corner, a wide receiver, running back. You don't need them all, but you got to be tough up front on both sides of the ball, and you got to have a great quarterback. And I think right now we're in a position where we've grown through the years. Kalani's put together, kind of slowly, some people say, but a real solid roster, and I'm looking forward to every one of these games and the matchups, because sometimes a solid roster might not match up against a particular team, and that's the beauty of football games, is when coaches go to start putting forward that game plan, they start to see weaknesses. They see strengths, but they also see weaknesses, and that's kind of the part I look forward to.
It's very exciting because obviously people want to talk about the Big 12 and push forward, and they should. Like, you're building a house or you're engaged to get wet. Like, you're excited about the future. But not at the cost of this group and this schedule. How do you feel about the final independent schedule you put together and how it kind of shakes out as it lays out?
I think it's a really good schedule, obviously, but I think maybe 24, 25, 26, 27, those schedules were wicked. There are going to be some tougher ones that you won't see. You'll never know what I did, the craziness, but you'll see this one, and this one's a really good schedule.
And you go to South Florida. That's the return game. Baylor at home is really interesting. This feels like 83 and 84, where, yes, BYU lost there, but come back, you try and get that one at home, of course. At Oregon in week 3 on Fox is going to be amazing. The old Mountain West homies, right, in the last kind of chapter with Utah State for a moment. Notre Dame finally on the schedule, Tom. You don't have to get asked about it. What are the tickets? Arkansas. It's wild, Tom, that the SEC has only come to Provo. This will be the third game, second team. It's hard to get them here, but here we are with Arkansas this year.
I feel good about that. We had to let go of some of the games in the future that were really big-time games, but this is one that we could keep. And you could only keep 3 games knowing that you're playing a 9-game schedule. And so to determine those games, you kind of had to see which ones were early. And the ones that were the P5 schools were kind of the ones that were early. So this is a schedule where you get them all, but in 23, that first year in the Big 12, we had to. It's a little tougher than maybe you might expect.
Now the schedule,
the 23 schedule.
Yeah,
you're saying
for sure. The schedule in 2022 is loaded with quote unquote vengeance games. I mean, the USF game is interesting, especially for Jaron Hall, because it was his first start back in 2019. He goes back as an entirely different player, entirely different roster, more matured. Then you get Baylor to come back. Obviously, Baylor's the defending Big 12 champions, but they're coming to Provo. And then what Boise State did to BYU in Provo last year. Do you buy into that at all? Do you feel that? We talk about it, the vengeance, like, but as the athletic director, do you feel that?
Not one bit. Not at all. I don't believe in that. I just think that every game, you got to take a look at it for what it is, that game, that day. And you look like, again, I'm stuck on the matchups. Sometimes you go into games that you could list right now, and you think that will have a great advantage. But you come into the game, and if there's an injury or something, it's raining or who knows, those things can change. And I love that part about the games is I like to take them a game at a time. The proverbial coach speak, I'll take it a game at a time. Otherwise, you have vengeance on your mind. I don't buy that.
That's reserved for us here. That's fine. Okay, so have you been told what the 23 schedule is going to be? Like who you're going to play and if it's a 5 home, 4 road situation?
No, we haven't. We know that it'll be 5. Well, I'm not sure exactly what it'll be for us, but it'll be 5 home or 4 home in the other.
Right, you'll rotate each year.
Rotate away. So we don't know the games for sure, the teams.
Do you want BYU to be because some Power 5 schools do this, in the 7 home game space in the future?
I'm not quite sure about that. We'll have to see how that works out. We'll see. Sometimes, like in the past, I'm going to tell you, we had a game where one season where I think we played 7, one season, and the fans complained because the tickets were too much. I said, no, it's just one extra game. Yeah. No, the season tickets are more expensive. No, it's one extra game.
You're paying for an extra game.
You got bills to pay.
But I think we'll see. We'll see how it works out.
Because if it's a 5 home game year, there's a good chance you have 2 home games of the 3 non-conference, right?
Yeah, but we could jimmy our non-conference games and make it so you just play 6 home games.
And you mentioned with Dave, you don't have a theory per se at this moment of, yes, we always want 1 P5, 1 G5, 1 FCS. Will you still play an FCS every year? Is that
I believe we will, yes, I believe we will.
And then you're open to the idea of multiple P5s, it sounds like, in non-conference.
We could. I think it just depends on who, when, where, and why.
Yes.
And those are things that Kalani and I talk about a lot. I mean, there's this team that we're playing in 23 in the opener. There weren't very many teams out there, but still, even though there weren't very many, we looked at the rosters, we looked at their record and kind of their brand, and Kalani doesn't just let things fly. Sometimes out there, he'll just say, anywhere, anytime, any place. But he's very thoughtful about the games that he plays, which is I want him to be.
Yeah. Do you know if that's home? You know if it's home or road? Can you tease us on that?
It'll be home because
it was a Tennessee game. It was a home.
Right.
Game.
I assumed as much, but want to make
Correct.
Sure.
When do you expect to be able to announce who that opponent will be?
We're just waiting on that team to kind of countersign some things. We're close. We're very, very close.
What was it like at the Big 12 spring meetings, finally being in those meetings? And you had been in Vegas, had some other meetings, but now it's like, that felt like the formal sort of welcome publicly, I guess?
I think so. The meetings, there was some important business, and some of it was just natural business of the conference that every conference in the country is going to go through. But it was interesting to start to see the personalities and to see the kind of the power brokers, and you kind of try to get a feel. And we just kind of sat back, and we have to be respectful of our entrance into that room. Not necessarily be respectful in the games, but in the room, we need to be super respectful and find our way and see where we fit in that room. And I think that's important for us.
Was that room awkward because Texas and Oklahoma and the whole deal?
Not really. I mean, I think the individual athletic directors, we've known each other for a long, long time. And you go to battle with those guys, you play them in games, and sometimes you have votes in the NCAA or comments or opinions on national things, and you all know that you might be different. But when you get in a room and it's a conference, even though you have Texas and Oklahoma on their way out, they're very, very professional, and I thought the business at hand was taken care of in a great manner.
Athletic Director Tom Holmoe with us on BYU Sports Nation. The Cougars approaching the 12th season of independence. I can't believe this is the 12th season. It's just flown by, but it's full of great history. What do you feel like is the greatest accomplishment by BYU's athletic department and the football team within now almost 12 seasons of independence?
I look at all the highlights and the different games, and it's hard to slice that. I'll leave that one up to you guys. I'm not good on lists of the top 10, but I just think that, like I said it earlier in the show, when you look back, it's sometimes good for me to see the difficult times.
Yeah.
There's some things that I just wouldn't share, but there were some low points in Independence for me that we never really talk about. And so the fact that we got through it, and that was the objective, was to get from Independence into a P5, is you look back and you see those low points, and I think Cougar Nation shared in some of those low points that we got through it. And we got to, the desired goal. So I love that part. But I love how BYU TV has all those highlights. And I was watching them in the pre-roll before the show started, thinking that was all during Independence. That's crazy. And those players and coaches gave Cougar Nation a lot of thrills during that time.
It was beautiful. Do you want to play Utah every year when you're in the Big 12?
I think I do. Yeah, I think that's something but it won't happen. I mean, just for everybody to know, Utah will have some games that are big games like they have in this year. Yeah, beyond Florida.
And you'll probably have some opportunities
we might too. Yeah, and I think that we can, Mark Harlan, their athletic director, and I have a real good understanding about that. Not that we're reserving spots to go play, but when the opportunity comes up and it's something special, I think we each can come to each other and say, hey, here's an opportunity that we have that we think is something special. I think that the Utah game is a great rivalry. But once the first game wasn't played, where the first time we took a break, once that happens and everybody just falls apart about it, then the next time it's not quite so bad. But it's a great rivalry, and I think the games will be even more meaningful in the future.
Well, if you're Ken Karchner or Jim McMahon, you can call him Tommy Holmoe. But if you're not one of those guys, he's just Tom.
Thomas.
Okay?
Thomas Holmoe.
He's Tom.
Yes.
Tom, it's great to have you in Studio B.
Thanks,
Looking
Tom.
forward to a fantastic
Have fun.
2022.
Let's have a great year.
Let's go. Okay.